Enteric diseases are basically diarrheal diseases. What are the most common ones in sub-Saharan Africa? We would start with rotavirus disease, specifically in young children, in very young children, rotavirus disease. Cryptosporidiosis is a major cause of diarrheal diseases. Then we have enterotoxic E. coli and shigella. What are the manifestations of these diarrheal diseases? We define it as if you have more than 3 loose bowel movements in the 24-hour time period, you have diarrhea. It comes associated with vomiting in young children. They usually don't get diarrhea alone, they have vomiting and diarrhea. They sometimes have fever with it, but fever and vomiting is much rarer in older patients or in adults. Diarrhea can also come with blood in stools. We call it dysentery, and that is caused usually by shigella, very often by shigella dysentery type 1, or by enterohemorrhagic E. coli. They can also cause dysentery. The mainstay of infection is rehydration, rehydration, rehydration. So what we have to do is we have to rehydrate the patient with fluids, but also with the electrolytes in the fluids. So most health centers in sub-Saharan Africa would have oral rehydration salts. That's a little sachet with the electrolytes in it, and that is mixed into, say, a liter of water, which is then given to the patient, and that is important that they continuously receive oral rehydration to avoid dehydration, which then causes further fatigue and makes it more difficult for the patient to sit up and to drink, and ultimately can lead to death. So our mainstay is, as I said, rehydration therapy. Adjunct therapies for diarrhea is sometimes antibiotics. And for dysentery, for example, it is recommended to use antibiotics. For most other diarrheal diseases, that is diarrhea without blood in the stool, it's not recommended to use antibiotics. Some people use antimotility drugs, but it is generally not recommended. The rationale for that being is that the organism sits in your gut, and it's a good idea to have diarrhea and get rid of it as quickly as possible. Diarrheal diseases cause globally a lot of morbidity and mortality. It's one of the most common causes for death in young children. Globally, perhaps as many as 300,000 deaths a year. But there are also more insidious consequences. So some children have diarrhea that weakens them and then predisposes them for more diseases. So they have one diarrhea episode after another and never really come back. What are the key strategies to prevent enteric infections? And we use the acronym WASH, which stands for water, sanitation, and hygiene. So let me quickly go through this. Safe water supply. In many places where we are working here, for example in Twara, people still have to live off surface water, so they go to an open surface water like a pond and scoop water into a bucket, which is then used. So that's far from safe, obviously. It's much better to use water which is at least harvested from the roof, or ideally is safe water provided by the municipality in other places. So there is a lot of room for development in that sense. Sanitation affects the latrines. For our star homes here, we have built latrines next to them, ventilated pit latrines. And finally, it's important to have hygiene, particularly food hygiene, so that there is a safe space where food can be prepared, which is clean, can be cleaned again, which again depends very much on the access to safe water.